Hi guys, I want to talk about the Black Ops 7 DPS sheet. I want to explain what DPS numbers we show, how testing works and what the different tabs inside the document are used for. To start, DPS means damage per second. It's basically a way to measure a weapon's damage output over time. In its most basic version, DPS is just the weapon's damage per shot multiplied by the rate of fire. So it gives you a good indication how powerful a gun is, no matter if the weapon has a high damage with a slower rate of fire or lower damage with a fast rate of fire. But this basic DPS value only tells you how the weapon performs while you actually hold down the trigger. And in zombies that is not always the best way to tell the story. A lot of weapons have small magazines, long reloads, overheating or cooldowns, and other downtime where you're not able to deal damage. That's why I like to focus on reload adjusted DPS. Reload adjusted DPS looks at the full cycle of a weapon. You shoot the gun, you reload or wait for the weapon to cool down, and then you start to shoot again. So it also considers how much your downtime lowers your real damage output. A good example is the Akimbo XM325. If you hold down both triggers, you can shoot around 3 to 4 seconds, and then it takes the same, if not a longer time to cool down again. So in practice, your real DPS can be only around half of the theoretical DPS. If you only look at the raw numbers and completely ignore the downtime. That's why I consider reload adjusted DPS to be the most important stat for the sheet. For testing, the damage values are taken from actual gameplay at Pack-a-Punch 3 and a legendary rarity. I write down the headshot and the body shot damage numbers at the closest range. For those damage values, I use the Deadshot Deadhead Augment. It increases your damage values consistently by 20%, and it is something you can realistically use in any loadout. The rate of fire is tested with double tap and double time augment, which increases your rate of fire by around 44%. Reload times are tested with the Speed Cola perk and the classic formula augment, which decreases your reload time by around 50%. Both reload times and rate of fire values are frame counted in a video editing software, so the numbers are as consistent as possible. Now let's take a look at the sheet itself. Right now the document has 5 main tabs. The first one is the info page and explains how the sheet works, what the numbers mean and how you should read the whole document. Then we have the DPS chart by use case. This is the main chart I would recommend for most people. It separates weapons by how they are actually used. The left column in this chart focuses on reload adjusted headshot damage. Next to it you have the body shot DPS values displayed. I think it's important to show both because some weapons have a really high body shot damage compared to their headshot damage. As an example, shotguns, especially when using double tap with double standard, can give you a higher body shot DPS than you do to the head. Double tap double standard doubles your body shot damage. The difference between the headshot and the body shot DPS also tells you how easy a weapon is to use. The further apart those numbers are, the more important it is to hit your critical shots. Weapons are divided into multiple categories. First we have all-purpose weapons that basically work at any range. Next we have close range weapons. Those are things like shotguns, pistols, akimbo weapons or SMGs. Those either have really harsh damage drop-offs or they have limitations like not being able to aim down sights with akimbo weapons, so the spread can make you miss a lot more bullets at range. Then we have sniper style weapons. What I mean by that is weapons that are most effective when you line up zombies and hit multiple targets with one shot. This can be done with headshots on sniper rifles or body shots with weapons like the Siren or the Arc M1. Explosive weapons are separated because they can hit multiple zombies at once. So the DPS number alone doesn't really show you the full picture because one shot can deal more damage to multiple targets. And lastly, we have melee weapons, which are also separated because they work very different from regular guns. Since DPS is not the one-all be-all stat, I also use the notes section to give extra information. For example, I write down what attachments do, at what range the damage drops off if that's a useful information, if the weapon has high recoil or is there any special behavior. That is important to understand the DPS number. The goal is not just to show you one number and say this weapon is good. The goal is to give you enough context so you can actually understand why a weapon performs the way it does. I also highlighted weapons that I consider the meta. Those are weapons with very good damage output, but also weapons weapons that are realistic and easy enough to use. So with any of the gold highlighted weapons, you generally cannot go wrong. The next DPS chart is sorted by overall ranking. I consider this the more in-depth DPS chart because it gives you more freedom on what stats you display and how you compare weapons. You can display multiple stats like raw DPS, headshot damage, body shot damage, rate of fire, magazine sizes and so on. So if you want to compare weapons in a different way, for example by the highest body shot DPS value, you can simply do that in the first column and then display additional stats aside it. And again, notes are shown here also, so you still get the information you need for the context behind the numbers. Lastly, we have the weapon base data tab. This is where I enter all my testing results. As an example, on the left side we have the headshot damage, body shot damage, rate of fire, magazine sizes and so on. And further to the right, this is where I calculate all the DPS numbers. So we have reload adjusted DPS values, raw DPS values, and then those are displayed into the DPS chart. The last tab is for changes. Every time I add a new gun, I do changes to the sheet. I try to track those changes here. So thanks for watching. If you have any feedback, leave it either in the video comments or join the Discord. You can find this on the first page. Then just go there and go into the general zombies talk and write me a message there or simply DM me. Thanks for watching. I try to do more content again. My issue last year was that I tried to be too perfect with my content, and I think I just need to upload more again and not spend so much time on editing a video every single time. So yeah, thanks for watching. Have a good one.